All right, it's Sunday, so you know what that means. We got another NASCAR DFS slate to break down. First and foremost, just want to say thank you guys so much for a great week last week on the channel. We had a ton of new followers, engagement, comments. It was really, great to see. So there's no better way to kickstart, the official 2025 season, that way. So thank you, thank you, thank you. But yeah, Byron went back to back, obviously being a 24 fan, it was pretty cool to see. I didn't think he had a chance. Yeah, he might have got a little bit lucky there with the wrecks at the end, but we'll take it nonetheless. So we're shifting gears and we're talking about Atlanta Motor Speedway. So, if you're new here or if you've been watching these videos or you're over on X, how can you help us, right? Our whole goal is to reach more people. So you can help us do that. If you like, comment, share, retweet our content, it helps with the algorithm and allows us to, reach more people. We had like 30, plus subscribers last week, which was awesome. So we were so close to our goal when we first started this channel of 1,000 subscribers. We're inching closer there. So thank you. If you want access to the spreadsheet yourself, or just ask us questions or hang out or just engage with us, go over on X. It's at Fast Cars FM. Then hey, no expectations whatsoever. But if you had a good weekend, you just want to say thanks, show your appreciation a little bit more. There's a PayPal and Venmo link there in the support tab. So let's talk about Atlanta Motor Speedway. So, if you've been playing NASCAR DFS, the last few years, you know that Atlanta has got reconfigured again. It's a 28-degree high bank, 1.5, mile intermediate type of super speedway. But as we've started to gather some data, the last handful of years, we've had 6 races so far at this new configuration. We're starting to understand kind of how this racetrack works, and it's a little unique. You can't really loop it in, I think, at least with Daytona and Talladega. It races a little bit differently. The amount of laps is different. How Dominator points are spread out are a little bit different as well. So we'll kind of talk about it. So we have 260 laps, which is a lot more than we had for the Daytona 500. It's more than we have at Talladega. So because of that, it's a higher scoring slate than those, super speedway races. So every time a lap clicks off, there's points awarded for who's leading that lap and who got the fast lap. Now, yes, fast laps will probably still be distributed throughout the field somewhat evenly, but what we see is the main difference here at Atlanta Motor Speedway is the lap leader. The lap leader is able to, accumulate a lot more laps led points than potentially at a Daytona and Talladega where they're swapping the lead back and forth. We still see them drafting and close to one another, but we kind of see them a little bit more single file, a little bit more spread out. Um, we won't see them, 2, 3 wide, probably a majority of their race. When things ramp up, we'll definitely see that. So, um, keep that in mind, mainly for tournaments. But, if you watch the Xfinity Series race, like Austin Hill, for example, started up front, led a bulk of laps, and, won the race. So, I wouldn't be surprised if we see maybe not that type of dominant performance, but that type of similar structure, today. So place differential is still the main priority, but it's not a just completely stack the back of the field like at Daytona and Talladega. You're going to need, some of those drivers up front that are going to lead laps and finish well. So yes, we still get wrecks here, but we don't really get the big one. We don't really see multiple cars just turning and crashing and DNFing. Typically we'll see, wrecks that are a little bit on the smaller side. So we'll still get accidents for sure, but maybe it takes out 2 to 3 cars, 3 or 4 cars instead of like, 8 to 10 cars at once. So we got qualifying here. Let me scroll up. Hopefully you guys can see this a little bit better too. I tried adjusting some of the fonts, the sizes. It's a very free, show over here. So I haven't done a ton of research into different, platforms and systems and all that fun stuff. But regardless, let's talk about it. So pricing, pretty soft. You can really play whoever you want. You got Byron. Well, the obvious thing is you got the Penske cars up front. They qualified well, basically 1 through 4. Then you have the JGR, chalk plays that did not qualify well, that offer a lot of place differential. So the JGR cars are going to be very chalky. They're going to have a lot of ownership. There's some other plays back there that just look like big chalk plays. So I think this slate's really going to come down to, what chalk plays hit, what chalk plays work out, and then what chalk plays bust and don't work out, and who's going to make it through, right? So um, when we look at this slate, we got Byron, Blaney, Logano, Elliott, Keselowski, Hamlin, and Cindric as our expensive plays. I'm going to talk about the Penske cars first. So you got Blaney, Logano, and Cindric starting, first, second, and fourth. All of them, I think, are going to run well. All of them have shown they're good on these super speedway style, type of tracks. We've seen them run up front. We've seen them work really well together, draft. Really comes down to, of the three of them, or maybe you're playing multiple of them, who's really the one out front leading a bulk of laps, right? I think it'll probably change around a little bit. But you got Blaney and Cindric on the front row. So, and then they have Logano and Barry right behind them. So like either of them could, potentially push the other one out front, lead some laps. So I like these Penske cars a little bit more for tournaments. I don't know how much I would stack the Penske cars together just because they do carry risk with how far forward that they start. But I can see lineups where you're playing Blaney and then place differential, or you're playing Logano and then place differential, or Cindric and place differential. You could potentially play some of them together as well. Just know that carries even more risk if they potentially DNF. So I do like all the Penske cars today, but a little bit more for tournaments. And probably one of them in my line is my main lap leader. When you talk about Byron, Elliott, I'll put them together. They're not going to be as popular as the JGR chalk plays, but maybe that's a good way to get a little bit different and get some leverage and some ownership, knowing that, hey, a lot of people are going to probably play the Penske cars, or a lot of people are going to play the JGR cars. Maybe these Hendrick cars are going to be overlooked. Byron's been pretty good here. He's won 2 out of the 6 races here. Elliott has a win here as well. So I like both of them. They kind of both start in the mid pack of the field, still give us some place differential upside, and we've seen them run well on these tracks. So really the only guy I'm not getting to in this range is Brad Keselowski. Um, really because of where he starts. He starts ninth, doesn't really give us a lot of place differential upside. It'll be hard to click on him instead of like a Penske car or, one of these other guys that just gives us place differential upside. And then you have Hamlin. Like I said, all the JGR cars did not qualify well. I believe they're going to race well. However, he offers massive place differential upside. He's going to be extremely popular, and for good reason. So that's kind of the expensive range. Once you get down to the 8K range, Kyle Busch and Chris Buescher, I'm going to put them kind of with Brad Keselowski. Just tough starting spot, right? Like, yeah, they give a little bit of place differential upside, but not nearly as much as like the Hendrick cars or the JGR cars that we just talked about. And yeah, they do start towards the front, but do we really think Kyle Busch or Chris Buescher are going to work their way past the Penske, 4 cars, basically, if you include Josh Berry up there to be a lap leader? Maybe, but I doubt it. So because of those reasons, I'm just really not getting to either of them. Now, Kyle Larson, if you look at his stats at the new Atlanta racetrack, they're not good. He's not finished in the top 10 once. He's been involved in a lot of accidents. Um, and that's part of the reason his pricing is $8,500. But, if you're talking about playing Elliott, you're talking about playing Byron, Larson's pretty much the same play. He doesn't have the results, but he's in the same equipment. He starts right in that same, spot, and he's a lot cheaper. So I like him for tournaments today. Bubba Wallace, I'm just really not getting to. Again, if you're playing Bubba Wallace, you're sacrificing, a Penske car, a JGR car, another guy that starts deep in the field, and it just doesn't feel good, right? So because of that, he's just not really projecting that well for me. Now, Christopher Bell, same thing as Denny Hamlin. He could be really popular, cheap, easy to get in lines, a lot of place differential upside, a lot to like there. Suarez starts 29th. Suarez actually has really, really good stats here at the New Atlanta. He's finished inside the top 10, 5 out of the 6 races. We know he has a win here. A lot to like with Daniel Suarez. So I'm going to have a lot of him today. Bowman, kind of same thing as Bubba, just not really feeling confident plugging him in. If you're plugging him in, you have to sacrifice, one of those other high projected types of plays. Um, Chase Briscoe. got that penalty that kind of explains his speed last week at Daytona, so he will not have that advantage this weekend. But he starts 25th, so I think he'll probably be the lowest owned of the JGR cars just because of where he starts. But he still starts deep in the field, and he still has a lot of Toyotas to work with. We know this equipment's good, regardless if he doesn't have that cheat code anymore. Um, but I like him. I don't mind going right back to him. Reddick, kind of in the same boat. If you're talking about playing Elliott and Chase and Larson, maybe you could play Reddick too. He starts right in that same range. Not really known to be like a super speedway style racer, but he did finish second, at the Daytona 500. Yeah, a little bit craziness on the last lap there, but $7,800. I don't really think a lot of people are going to be playing him, so I like him a lot for tournaments today to get a little bit different. Especially when you have Ross Chastain and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and even Ty Gibbs in this price range too. Like all of them are going to be really, really popular because of where they start. They're all good, aggressive drivers. They all give place differential upside. Like, if they wreck out, they're really not going to hurt your line. There's a lot to like with Chastain, Stenhouse, and Gibbs. Priest not really getting to, mainly because of where his starting position is. McDowell, I think you could play as like a pivot option. If everyone's playing Ross, Stenhouse, and Gibbs, who are some other guys you can potentially get to. You can still give some place differential upside, but just won't see that amount of ownership. Michael McDowell makes a lot of sense in that regard. Todd Gilliland starts too far forward. AJ Allmendinger, again, kind of in that tough zone with kind of Bubba Wallace, Priest, Bowman, just a tough spot to get to in DFS. I do like Eric Jones, so depending on how aggressive you're getting up front, you're going to have to get some of these value plays in there. Eric Jones starts 28th, gives a lot of place differential upside. He'll be looking to move forward. We saw him run well at the super speedway, so I think he can do that again today. And then, really from there, I'm not really too interested in any of the other 6K plays like Haley, Barry. Maybe if you're playing like 150 max, like you could get to them. I just would rather play the Penske cars. Now, yes, I know they're a completely different price range, but I'd much rather play the Penske cars than Josh Berry just based off of, equipment skill, what we've seen in the past. Austin Dillon kind of in that tough starting range, same with Noah Gragson. Now, Corey LaJoie, he's been pretty good at Atlanta. He ran really well at Daytona, starts 35th. He's really cheap, a lot of place differential upside there. So he's a good option today. Cole Custer starts 23rd, kind of the same thing with McDowell. Not a lot of people are probably going to play him, but he starts in the second half of the field. He gives you some upside. And if, everyone's going to LaJoie or everyone's going to Jones or Gibbs, like, yeah, he's not going to project nearly as high, but like Cole Custer, Riley Herbst, like these are some ways to get off some of the chalk plays and still have some upside, with significantly less ownership. So, say Eric Jones or say Ty Gibbs, blows a tire in stage one and DNFs and he finishes 34th. Getting the Custer or Herbst that could potentially give you a top 20 finish or something, that'll really help you. But you kind of need some of those chalk plays to have bad days, for that type of strategy to work. And then really, I don't really think you need to get this low on the slate because pricing is so soft. So like, I'm not really getting the Ty Dillon, Hocevar, John Hunter, Nemechek. Maybe you can play SVG starting 30th. He starts pretty deep. He really just needs to keep it clean. And, as wrecks happen, he should be a pure attrition play and work his way forward. Zane Smith starts too high. And then again, if you need a pure attrition play, maybe you can go to Cody Ware and BJ McLeod. But at Atlanta, we don't really see the huge chaos of, 20 cars at DNFing. But you never know, what we're going to get. So for me, if you're playing cash games, I think it's really just what chalk plays you want to focus on. And it'll probably come down to a lot of 1v1s in terms of, well, they played, Christopher Bell and I played Corey LaJoie and, the rest of our drivers are the same. And it'll probably come down to that type of scenario versus tournaments. I think there's a lot of ways you can attack in terms of what chalk plays you want, what chalk plays you want to be underweight on, who your lap leaders are, maybe some guys in the middle pack of the field. So I have not built lines yet, but I'm looking forward to doing that as soon as I upload this video. But thank you guys again for all the support last week at Daytona. It has, definitely re-energized us to get some content out. So good luck today, and we'll catch you next week.